57 shots echo through the tall pines of the Weelaunee Forest on the southeast side of Atlanta. Pine needles coat the earth. The air is still. Bullets spew from the guns of local Atlanta and Georgia State Police. All 57 of them hit their target, a 26-year-old land defender named Manuel Terán, known by many as Tortuguita. According to the autopsy reports, Tortuguita was weaponless and had their hands raised in the air as they sat cross-legged in a tent protesting the proposed construction of the biggest police training facility in the country, known as Cop City. Police and state troopers murdered Tortuguita for defending forest land that the state was trying to clear-cut to build a facility to train the very cops that murdered them. As environmental movements and struggles for climate justice gain power and become more effective at blocking extraction, movements like Stop Cop City are increasingly butting heads with the shields and batons of the state and ultimately capital, the police. Today we unpack the escalating violence against and criminalization of land, water, and air defenders both in the US and across the world to reveal just how entrenched the forces of fossil capital are, especially when it comes to wielding law enforcement for their interests. We'll reveal the intersections between the carceral state and environmental extraction through the planned Cop City complex in Atlanta, as well as explore how the US has exported its policing tactics abroad to countries like El Salvador, leading to murders and assassinations of environmental activists. Today, we reveal the true violence stopping climate action. This video is better on Nebula. Use the link in the description below or stick around until the end to find out how to support our changing climate directly by signing up for Nebula or even gift Nebula to a friend. There you can watch this video ad-free and also watch over 25 OCC videos that I haven't released on YouTube, including my most recent Nebula Plus video breaking down how we can use police and military budgets to build out renewable projects, sustainable cities, and infrastructures of care. In 1704, the first police patrol took to the fields of the southern United States. It was formed to hunt down enslaved people, repress rebellions, and enforce discipline. The roots of policing in the United States are stained with the racist enforcement and protection of capitalist production. The police functioned to maintain plantation owners' bottom line by minimizing disruptions caused by enslaved people. Today, this stain has seeped even deeper into the vast root network that is the American carceral state. Ever since 1704, policing in the United States has worked to assure the disenfranchisement, plunder, and extraction of communities of color, especially Black and Indigenous communities. Whether through the enforcement of Jim Crow laws, endless murders of Black people, or the mass incarceration of people of color, police and prisons in the United States harshly dehumanize and criminalize those with the least power. And if you're sitting there thinking that police and prisons prevent crime, study after study shows that this is not the case. This meta-analysis of police and crime statistics from 1968 to 2013, for example, found that the overall effect size for police force size on crime is negative, small, and not statistically significant. Even the Department of Justice admits that increasing the severity of punishment does little to deter crime. The criminal justice system doesn't prevent harm or justice, it reacts to it. It can only respond once a crime has already been committed, and even the very definition of crime can be wielded to eliminate or sideline any threat to the state in the flow of capital and profits. This is exactly what Richard Nixon did to vilify and repress anti-war and Black organizers in the 1970s through his War on Drugs campaign. According to Nixon's domestic policy chief, John Ehrlichman, we knew we couldn't make it illegal to be either against the war or Black. But by getting the public to associate the hippies with marijuana and Blacks with heroin, and then criminalizing both heavily, we could disrupt those communities. And as we'll soon see, this criminalization tactic is now being used against fossil capital's political enemies. And even when the police do respond to crime, which is usually just traffic stops or petty theft, it is often in violent, racially charged ways. In the US, cops injure 250,000 people a year and kill more than 600 people. There are countless examples of violent escalations by police, especially when it comes to people of color and Black people specifically. Indeed, Black, Indigenous, and Pacific Islander people are 3 times more likely to be killed by police than white people. And 1/3 of the people murdered by cops were trying to run away. Not only is the US carceral system violent, but it also sucks funding away from needed programs and infrastructure that actually do create joyful and comfortable communities and neighborhoods. The city of Chicago spends over $1.7 billion, or 37% of its budget, on police every year. Baltimore spends a little over a quarter of its budget on law enforcement every year, and Oakland spends 44% of its budget paying for cops. So when the inevitable question of where will the money come from when we try to build sustainable low-cost housing and transportation for those who need it, or expand access to affordable nutritious food and healthcare, the answer is and always should be the police budget. Because our carceral system tries to solve deep-rooted problems through violence, oppression, and incarceration. What we need to be doing instead is directing the people's money towards programs of care that actually work towards reducing crime and creating more enjoyable places to live. These look like affordable and no-cost housing, access to delicious and nutritious food, community centers and third places with mental health and healthcare facilities, and urban gardens and farms. When we fund prisons and police, we actively take away our ability to fund these other, more effective solutions. Solutions that will directly threaten the bottom line and profit-making capabilities of fossil capital. And as we struggle towards those solutions in the form of direct action and blockades, especially when it comes to halting the extraction of fossil capital, police and criminalization are increasingly being wielded to sideline and destabilize movements. After the uprisings of 2020 decrying the racist policies and carceral violence of the United States law enforcement, the Atlanta Police Department, alongside the city government and its business partners like Coca-Cola and Bank of America, decided that Georgia's cops needed a confidence boost. Citing morale and retention, these state and capitalist powers proposed destroying 85 acres of the Weelaunee Forest southeast of Atlanta to build a $90 million police training facility equipped with everything from an explosives testing area, a burn building, a fake town to practice urban combat, and even a Black Hawk helicopter landing pad. The complex would be the largest of its kind, training police in violent tactics and outfitting them with strategies of murder and warfare. But the proposed construction of this cop city, as it's come to be known, has met intense backlash amongst the people of Atlanta. Cop City foregrounds the fact that the struggle to defend our environment is the same as the struggle against carceral violence. As the fight for a regenerative, anti-racist, and anti-capitalist world gains steam through protest and blockades, the forces of fossil capital have leaned heavily on law enforcement to criminalize and sideline activists as a means to protect their extractivist interests. Critical infrastructure laws have been at the forefront of this effort to paint climate activists as terrorists in the eyes of the people. Since 2017, 45 states have considered 289 bills limiting people's right to assembly and protest, with 20 states enacting laws that place felony charges of domestic terrorism and conspiracy on protesters who sabotage or even just trespass on critical infrastructure. In the eyes of these laws, this critical infrastructure has been expanded to now encompass facilities like oil pipelines, natural gas refineries, and storage tanks. Through this slew of legislation, the state can not only directly protect the infrastructure of the fossil fuel industry through the targeting and criminalization of environmental activists, but they also lock in oil and gas infrastructure as essential in the eyes of the law. The echoes of the criminalization of political activists during Nixon's war on drugs clearly shape this new slew of laws. Laws that have facilitated the escalation of surveillance and violent crackdown on climate activists protesting Atlanta's Cop City. The 57 shots that killed Tortuguita were not only unjustified, but the ruthless next step of a carceral state that tries to paint any threat to capitalism's endless cycle of accumulation as terrorism. As journalist Natasha Leonard argues, the abundance of evidence, including the government autopsy, doesn't look like a group of police taking self-defensive action against a protester. What it looks like is that a forest defender was executed by firing squad. And mass arrests of protesters accompanied the murder of Tortuguita as a way to erode the Stop Cop City movement's momentum. The Atlanta and DeKalb County Police Departments arrested 23 people at a protest music festival within Weelaunee Forest under the allegations that they are wearing muddy clothes, connecting them to property destruction nearby. While another slew of arrests detained 61 activists under the guise of racketeering charges, which, as NPR host Ari Shapiro notes,
which are usually reserved for gangs and other criminal organizations.
With these arrests, the police essentially claimed that those who were integral in organizing the defense of the Weelaunee forests are part of a criminal organization. As Atlanta organizer Marlon Kautz explains,
police, prosecutors, and even Governor Kemp have been trying to suggest in the media and in court that the opposition to Cop City is actually the work of a criminal organization whose members conspire to commit acts of terrorism.
This was coupled with the armed raid and arrest of 3 organizers of the Atlanta Solidarity Fund, a fund that has been integral to bailing out and supporting those unjustly arrested during the Stop Cop City protests. As Amy Goodman from Democracy Now! Reports, the police charged the fund organizers with money laundering and charity fraud. And
as proof of money laundering, the warrants cite reimbursements from April 2021 to March of this year that total less than $7,000 and were for forest cleanup, totes, COVID rapid tests, media, and yard signs.
As Atlanta community organizer Kamau Franklin asserts, this violent SWAT raid of organizers
is really another way of destroying and attacking the infrastructure of organizing and movement.
Here, we can see the realities of what the fossil capitalist carceral state values when it comes to infrastructure. Instead of recognizing the necessary and indeed critical infrastructure of mutual aid and care groups organizing to get people access to COVID tests, food, water, and unpolluted and intact forests and water, the Atlanta and DeKalb County Police and their fossil capitalist backers see critical infrastructure as that which will ensure continued profits and business as usual. More police, more pipelines, and more extraction. As Frida Hewson, a spokesperson of a protest camp blocking the construction of the Coastal GasLink pipeline in Unistoten territory in northern British Columbia, notes, industry and government always talk about critical infrastructure, and their critical infrastructure is making money and using destructive projects to make that money. For us, our critical infrastructure is the clean drinking water and the very water that the salmon spawn in. In short, these are struggles over what critical infrastructure means. The land defenders and activists trying to stop Cop City are there to protect the people's critical infrastructure, while cops are struggling desperately to shield the critical infrastructure of capital. Fossil capital is under attack, and its shield, police, and law enforcement will do whatever it needs to do to protect the machines of extraction, as seen in the violent murder of Tortuguita and the mass arrests of activists under dubious charges. But the police response to Stop Cop City is just another step in the criminalization of climate and environmental activists in the US. From the Green Scare in the early 2000s, when the FBI labeled saboteurs from the Animal and Earth Liberation Fronts the #1 terrorist threat in the country, even though the groups had not killed a single person, to the surveillance, incarceration, and repression of Dakota Access Pipeline protesters, the police in the United States have long worked to dehumanize and criminalize environmental protesters seeking to directly act against the infrastructure and profits of fossil capital. When it comes to the environment, cops then function with a fundamental goal: to eliminate, sideline, and detain anyone who threatens corporate extraction, anyone who might stop the ever-turning wheel of accumulation and pollution under fossil capitalism. Indeed, it's telling that $30 million of the funds being used to build the massive cop training facility comes from corporations like Coca-Cola, Chick-fil-A, and Bank of America, companies whose investments in infrastructure rely on the continued flow of fossil fuels and an uninterrupted business as usual. But the escalated state violence we witnessed in the struggle to stop Cop City is merely imperialist protectionism and militarism come home to roost. The United States has a long history of exporting its carceral violence to protect the interests of multinational corporations abroad. The violent tactics and counterinsurgent strategies wielded by the Atlanta Police Department then are not an aberration, but instead the tendrils of American policing tactics that we've exported for decades come home. 115 miles south of the proposed Cop City site in Georgia lies the Western Hemisphere Institute for Security Cooperation, another cop city of sorts, except this one trains and exports the militant and carceral policing tactics perfected in the Imperial Core to the police and military in the Imperial Periphery as a way of protecting the US's corporate interests. Formerly known as the School of Americas, the Western Hemisphere Institute has long educated a slew of military and police officers from Central and South America in the ways of violent oppression and incarceration. As human rights attorney Azadeh Shashahani writes, the school hosts South and Central American military officers and offers courses from tactical training to advanced theory on the application of military doctrine. Among the school's graduates in El Salvador are Colonel Domingo Monterosa, who led the famous Atlacal battalion that massacred hundreds in El Mozote in 1981, and Roberto Dubuisson, who planned the 1980 assassination of Salvadoran Archbishop Oscar Romero, an outspoken critic of the military government. In short, the School of Americas, or the Western Hemisphere Institute, is an international cop city, one that has encouraged violent military and police escalation and criminalization of activists throughout Latin America. Just 11 days after Tortuguita was murdered in cold blood, 2 water defenders across the world in Honduras were shot dead for their role in organizing the occupation of Los Pinares mine, which was polluting the Guapinol River. Tragically, murder is a common occurrence for environmental defenders in Latin America. With the militarization and police training pouring out of schools like the Western Hemisphere Institute, South and Central American authoritarian states backed by the US have violently repressed environmental activists for decades. 1,910 land and water defenders were killed worldwide between 2012 and 2022. 9 out of every 10 of those murders took place in South and Central America. In 2022 alone, 126 environmental activists were murdered in South and Central America. Among the perpetrators of state violence and repression against these environmental activists is El Salvador. As Shashahani notes, El Salvador has long modeled its zero-tolerance military regime off of the United States. With the backing of the US, El Salvador's government instigated an iron fist policy against gangs throughout the country starting in 2003. Similar to the broadening of protest laws in the US, El Salvador used this mandate with broad strokes to repress those protecting water and land. This was followed up in 2006 with a counterterrorism law that echoed the United States' Patriot Act. As Shashahani notes, among the first people to be charged under the new statutes were 14 community activists from the community of Suchitoto who were protesting water privatization. And the fingerprints of the US carceral state are all over El Salvador. Part of the Salvadoran Armed Forces Special Operations Group, known as the Hacha Command, trained in the US, and according to the Wall Street Journal, Navy SEALs and US Special Forces took part in the direct training of Salvadoran security forces. These police and military forces are then mobilized to protect the interests of capital, and more specifically fossil capital, as it reaches its imperialist hands into the soil and water of the imperial periphery. The policy of the United States, whether it's the Iraq War or the countless assassinations and coups throughout Latin America, has long been one of control and repression in the service of multinational corporations. Indeed, when the Bush administration opened up a new police training academy, a cop city if you will, in El Salvador's capital city, the directors of the school were, as Azadeh Shashahani writes, remarkably clear in their goals: to make Latin America safe for foreign investment by providing regional security and economic stability and combating crime. So the forces of fossil capital need the presence of police and military to ensure minimal disruption to their extraction and production. It's not just the hypermilitarization of police or the racist fear-mongering of authoritarian states that are driving the crackdown on environmental activists. Police violence is a sound tactic in the eyes of capital. It eliminates and sidelines the possibilities of disruption to production and ultimately profits. So how then do we tackle and struggle against this unjust and violent system? What should replace it? The criminalization and outright murder of land and water defenders reveals the horrors of the carceral state, one that employs racist policing and criminalization to protect and shield the infrastructure of fossil capital from any form of interruption. This is the violence preventing a global transition to a renewable and regenerative future. This means that to build a world beyond fossil capitalism and racist policing, we must abolish them and in their place invest in ourselves, our community, and our planet. In practice, this means redefining critical infrastructure not as the fuels and drills that bring profits to the few, but instead the land, water, and air that offer all of us life. That is truly critical infrastructure. Without fossil fuels, there are many ways to live, but if the air, the water, and the land around us are toxic with pollution, living becomes impossible. This shift in valuing infrastructure necessitates a system outside of capitalism. One possible post-capitalist future could be a deeply democratic eco-socialism, wherein the goods that we produce are decided upon by all communities and are created for the well-being of both the planet and those communities. But any anti-capitalist struggle needs to divest from the racist carceral institutions strangling our economy and state. Instead of infrastructures of violence and extraction epitomized in Cop City, natural gas pipelines, and the prison industry, we need what abolitionist scholars like Constance Gordon call infrastructures of care. The very same mutual aid and solidarity groups that the Georgia police sought to destabilize through mass arrests and raids during the Cop City protests are the infrastructures that link us tightly together and help us rebel against the capitalist, imperialist, and racist structures we live under today. These are networks of solidarity where we can prefigure a world built around caring for ourselves, others, and the planet instead of a world of violence and war. As abolitionists Kelly Hayes and Miriam Kaba argue, infrastructures of care challenge dehumanization and the erasure of atrocity while allowing us to hold on to each other and our humanity amid disasters daily and acute. Tight-knit communities, whether that's your union, a direct action group, or a mutual aid organization, can be the foundation for healing, defense, and rebellion against the fossil capitalist police state. Only collectively can we build power, and that starts with coming together. These groups help us rebel against capital's constant insistence to consume and transact. Instead, these groups ask us to care and support each other. And through that process of solidarity, we build power. Power that will help us abolish the carceral state, end the extraction of fossil capitalism, and build a brighter world on their rubble. As much as police and prison abolition is about tearing systems down, however, it is even more so about building up systems of care. As we've seen, police budgets are a massive chunk of what the city spends, which means that there are countless zero-carbon possibilities for change when we free up that money. This is why I've made a whole nother bonus video breaking down how we can mobilize police and military budgets to heal environmental crises and combat climate change. That video would do pretty poorly on YouTube, which is why it's available right now exclusively on the creator-owned streaming service Nebula, alongside another Nebula exclusive video I made on what a sustainable city in 2100 could look like without a police budget. On Nebula, you can watch over 25 bonus and extended OCC videos like this one on how we can take effective climate action right now, or this hour and 20-minute long interview with the authors of Half-Earth Socialism. And when you're done watching our Changing Climate videos, Nebula is home to over 100 other creators producing high-quality, ad-free, and exclusive content. There are new originals arriving seemingly every day, like Real Life Lore's series War Room, which recaps and explains major geopolitical developments every month, or the hilarious new original The Getaway, which pits 6 YouTube creators against each other, challenging them to find a snitch among them. Except the catch is, they're all snitches. Nebula is quickly becoming the most interesting, fastest growing independent video platform on the internet. That's in part because Nebula invests in us as creators. When you use my special link below, part of your Nebula subscription goes directly to me, and part of it goes towards producing Nebula original series, documentaries, or even plays, all of which take video creation to the next level. And the experience of watching all of this wonderful media is streamlined and easy to use. Nebula is constantly trying to improve the experience for the viewer. There are no algorithms, clickbait, or ads, because Nebula is trying to redefine video streaming not just for creators, but also for viewers. Nebula is quickly becoming the answer to the question, how do you make art and content as high quality and interesting as traditional media without the corruption and exploitation associated with that industry? So if you want to join a platform that enables creators like me to produce projects we never would have been able to before, allowing us more say in what we create and getting rid of all of those pesky ads, all while getting access to exclusive, high-quality videos from hundreds of other creators like Climate Town, Simon Clark, Not Just Spikes, Johnny Harris, and countless other storytellers, you should join Nebula today. And you can do that by going to my link at go.nebula.tv/OCC, which you can find in the description. There are options for monthly, yearly, and even lifetime memberships. And when you use my link, you can get 40% off the annual plan. The key is to use my special link. Only when you use it do you directly support me, and in the process get all my videos a month early and gain access to all the wonderful ad-free bonus content on Nebula for just $2.50 a month. And for those of you who already have a Nebula membership and want to share everything Nebula has to offer with your family and friends, Nebula is now offering annual gift cards. Use the link gift.nebula.tv/OCC to give a year of Nebula to a friend for just $30. So again, if you want to help support a wonderful group of creators redefine online video, you can sign up with my link at go.nebula.tv/OCC.